Hare Krishna. Can you hear my voice? Am I audible? Is my voice audible? Okay, let's start. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshtarine. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So thank you all very much for joining today's session. Last time we completed the 6th chapter of Jaiva Dharma. The chapter was titled as Nitya Dharma, Birth and Caste Differences. So very critical chapter and very sensational plot, but we will not go into the details, but I will do a quick recap of what the essential conclusions that we discussed, just in the form of question, answer, question, answer, question, answer. Of course, you all know the plot. This is the, the Devidas, the son of Kalidas Lahiri, being a very staunch caste Brahmana. He becomes very disturbed when the descendant of Chand Kazi, the current Kazi, when he came to meet the Vaishnavas were, they dealt with him in a very friendly, cordial way. So this really irritated, Devidas Lahiri. So he brought some, pundits who are expert in the Dharma Shastras and the Nyaya Shastras. He brought them to debate with the Vaishnavas. So that is the storyline. And of course, initially they insult the Vaishnavas very much, and they insult the Acharyas also very much. So in order to defend the Acharyas, the Vaishnavas agree for a debate, and Vaishnav Babaji Maharaj has been assigned as the person who would debate. So when the debate starts, Chudamani starts with the question. He says that are Hindus and Muslims not different jati? Is not a Hindu degraded by associating with a Muslim? Vaishnav Babaji Maharaj says, yes, the Nyaya Shastras talk about Nitya Jati Veda, about Jati being eternal, at least in one particular lifetime. But that refers to the species and that does not refer to birth. That's what he says. Chudamani says, okay, I agree with your things, but do you mean to say that in terms of caste, when you take the meaning of Jati to be caste, is there no difference between Hindus and Muslims? Vaishnav Babaji Maharaj says, yes, there is some dissimilarity, but those dissimilarities are not permanent or eternal. Only men have created imaginary permanent distinctions, but these are not permanent and eternal. Chudamani says, oh, so you mean to say even on the basis of birth, there is absolutely no distinction between Hindus and Muslims, except for attire, language, etc. Do you mean to say that there is absolutely no permanent difference? Vaishnav Babaji Maharaj says, a Jiva is born into a high caste or low caste based on his previous karma. And depending on that, he takes birth either as a Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra or an Antyaja, a low caste, outcast. Chudamani says, oh, so the Yavanas or Muslims are outcasts, right? Vaishnav Babaji Maharaj says, yes. According to the scriptural decrees, they do not fall within the 4 Varnas, so they should be considered as outcasts. So Chudamani says, if this is true, then how can a Yavana ever become a Vaishnava? And should the advanced Vaishnava society, Aryan society, should they be socializing with the Yavanas? So Vaishnav Babaji Maharaj says, look, if a human being has developed unalloyed devotional service towards the Supreme Lord, he is eligible to become a Vaishnava. this high birth, low birth, uh, uh, you know, so based on that birth, the Yavanas may not be qualified to perform the duties of the Varnashrama system, but they are definitely qualified to practice the Vaishnava Dharma. So Chudamani says that look, we understand that it is the Varnashrama, practice of Varnashrama duties which cleanses the heart. And when the heart becomes cleansed, then one acquires knowledge. And of the people who possess knowledge, there are two categories. One are the Jnanis, another are the Vaishnavas. Right? So yeah, uh, because a Muslim is a Yavana, he is an outcast. He does not belong to any of the four Varnas. So therefore, he cannot perform Varnashram duties. If he does not perform Varnashram duties, his heart will not become purified. And if his heart will not become purified, then how is he qualified to perform either Jnana or Bhakti? This was the point presented by Chudamani. So, Vaishnav Babaji Maharaj says, look, this is not the right understanding. Persons outside the Varnashram are also qualified to practice Bhakti. The Antyajas may not be qualified to perform Varnashrama or, or, or Karma Jnana Yoga, but they are certainly qualified to practice Bhakti. And then he quotes many verses from Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam to substantiate this point. Mam hi partha vipashritya and so on. So Chudamani says, okay, enough of quoting so many proofs. Now let us come to the conclusions. So you see very clearly that a Muslim is born in a low caste. What is the means of removing the blemish of the low caste? Vaishnadas Babaji Maharaj says, chanting the holy name and performing bhakti. Yannama sakrit shravanat pukkashopi vimuchyate samsarat. Ahobata shwapachato gariyan yajjihvagre vartate namatubhyam. Even if one may be a dog eater, just by chanting the holy name or by performing any one of the limbs of the devotional service, he becomes qualified to perform, he becomes as qualified as a Brahmana. So then Chudamani says, oh, if this is the case, then why can't a Chandala who is chanting Harinam Sankirtan perform fire sacrifice? In response to this, Vaishnadas Babaji Maharaj says, because fire sacrifice is a karmakandiya activity, it falls within the category of karma, naimittika dharma. And naimittika dharma and karma, they need a proper material qualification. One should have taken birth in a Brahminical family, and one should have actually received the Brahmin initiation and all those things. Because a Chandala has not received them, so he is not qualified to do it. But even though a Chandala who is by his chanting the holy name is qualified for bhakti, but he is not qualified for this yagyas. So Chudamani says this is a very strange conclusion. On one hand, you say bhakti is superior to karma, but on the other hand, you say that a Chandala is qualified for bhakti, but he is not qualified for karma. How do we understand this? Vaishnadas Babaji Maharaj says, no, this is not very difficult to understand. Human activities are divided into two categories. One is vyavaharik or mundane or social, and the next is paramarthik or spiritual. So there are two categories under which human activities can be divided, vyavaharik and paramarthik. Okay. So there could be cases where a person may be from the vyavaharik platform, he is low born, but from the paramarthik platform, he may be very highly qualified. For example, a Muslim on the vyavaharik platform may be low born, but if he takes up the practice of bhakti, he may develop the qualification for bhakti. So therefore, certain things on the vyavaharik level he cannot do. For example, he cannot marry a Brahmana bride. Okay. But in terms of practice of bhakti, he is very much qualified. So now Chudamani challenges. Why can't he marry a Brahmana bride? What is the offense if he marries a Brahmana bride? What is the problem? So he says, look, the problem is there is actually no problem. But the thing is, it causes unnecessary social impropriety. Okay, the bride may be a Vaishnava, and he may be a Vaishnava, Muslim may be a Vaishnava, so they can actually marry. That's not a problem. But people, um, but us who may not have qualification for bhakti, they may see that, oh, this kind of social impropriety is all right, and unnecessarily people will either get agitated, or they will think that, okay, these kind of social rules need not be followed. Okay, so therefore, in order, so the problem is not with adhikar, the problem is with social impropriety. It will cause unnecessarily people who are proud of knowing the social etiquette, they will become disturbed because of this. Okay, so even though one may have paramarthik eligibility, spiritual qualification, but one should not go against the principles of general society and unnecessarily agitate people. So then he says, okay, now you are talking about karma and bhakti. What is the qualification for karma and what is the qualification for bhakti? So in essence, he mentions that for qualification for karma is three: guna, karma, and janma. Birth, guna, and karma, these three. Sometimes guna may be predominant, sometimes janma may be predominant, but essentially these three are there. But for bhakti, the qualification is tatvika shraddha. Shraddha is the qualification. Shraddha in devotional service. Okay, like that. So then he says, Chudamani asks, what is this tatvika shraddha? He says, simple, guileless faith in the Supreme Lord and consequently sincere bhakti. So simple, guileless faith in the Supreme Lord in bhakti, bhakta, bhagavan. This is tatvika shraddha. Okay, so and Chudamani asks, okay, but some people may have this faith, but they lack a noble nature. They are very, they seem to be severely conditioned. Uh, are they still qualified for practice of bhakti despite their severe conditioning? So, in response to this, Vaishnav Das Babaji Maharaj says, yes, this kind of conditioning is a pitfall, or it is a problem for practicing karma. Okay, but for practice of bhakti, this is not a problem because bhakti itself purifies them. And then he quotes so many verses: Jata Shraddho Matkatasu Nirvinna Sarva Karmasu Vidyate Kama Hridaya Nashyanti Sarve Mayi Hridi Sthite Vidyate Hridaya Grantis Chadyante Sarva Samshaya Shiyanche Jasya Karmani Mayi Drishte Akilatmani, and so on. And then he also quotes from Bhagavad Gita, Apichet Suduracharo Bhajate Mananya Bhak Shipram Bhavati Dharmatma Shashvat Shantim Nigachati. He quotes all these verses to establish for practice of bhakti, even though one may be very severely conditioned, but the conditioning is not a disqualification to take up to the practice of bhakti. Rather, a very severely conditioned person, when he takes up to the practice of bhakti, then the practice of bhakti will purify his heart and destroy his conditioning. Okay, like that. So, which means dharma very diligently follows bhakti, like that he says. So, dharma meekly follows bhakti everywhere. So, in this way, he establishes. Okay. So, therefore, the Lord says, Name Bhakta Pranashyati. My devotee shall never be vanquished. Like that. So, at this point of time, Chudamani asks, look, for me, in my understanding, the rules and regulations of karma is sufficient. When I practice the Varnashrama karmas, that is more than satisfactory. By performing my Sandhya, Vandana and all these things, my heart will become purified. Then I will come to the stage of Jnana. Then I will attain Mukti. This is good enough for me. Okay. But I cannot understand how this Shraddha appears. Can you tell me how Shraddha appears? So Vaishnav Das Babaji Maharaj, before describing how Shraddha appears, he describes what is Shraddha. He says, Shraddha means Shraddha to Anya Upaya Varjam Bhaktyonmukhi Chitta Vritti Vishesha. He says, Shraddha means that uh, means the propensity in a man because by which he strives for bhakti. Okay, a desire to practice bhakti and desire to attain the goal of bhakti while strictly rejecting the paths of karma, jnana, yoga. This is the symptom of bhakti. This is bhakti. And then he says that Sacha Sharanapatti Lakshana, one who has this faith, has the symptoms of Sharanagati, Anukulyasya Sankalpo, Pratikulyasya Varjanam, Rakshishyati iti Vishwaso, Goptruptve Varanam Tata, Atmanikshepa Karpanye Shadvida Sharanagati, like that he says. So these 6 symptoms of Sharanagati are there. And he explains what are those 6 symptoms. Okay. So, and he says, whoever attains this Shraddha becomes a fit candidate to execute bhakti. Okay. Like that. And then he says that, then Chudamani asks, okay, I have understood, but still you have not told me how one gets Shraddha. How does one develop this Shraddha? There must be some reason, right? Some people get Shraddha, some people don't develop Shraddha. So in my understanding, there must be some Sukriti. Whoever has that Sukriti, they will attain Shraddha, right? And Sukriti or piety you develop by performing Varnashrama duties. And because a Muslim is not qualified for any of the Varna or Ashrama, he cannot perform Varnashrama duties. And because he cannot perform Varnashrama duties, he cannot develop Sukriti. And if he cannot develop Sukriti, he cannot develop Shraddha. Right? So therefore, a Muslim can never become a Vaishnava. This is my understanding. Chudamani says. Vaishnav Babaji Maharaj says, yes, you are right. Shraddha is definitely born out of Sukriti, but there are 2 types of Sukritis, Nitya Sukriti and Naimittika Sukriti. Or Agyata Sukriti or Bhaktionmukhi Sukriti, and Naimittika Sukriti is material piety. So, Nitya Sukriti or Agyata Sukriti is that which inspires one to take shelter of Bhakta and Bhakti, Satsanga and Bhakti. Whereas Naimittika Sukriti or material Sukriti pushes one towards either material enjoyment or Mukti. That's all. Right? So therefore, there is a big difference. He describes and he establishes how Mukti is also Naimittika only. Okay. So Naimittika Sukriti offers only temporary material results, but it cannot evoke Shraddha leading to unalloyed bhakti. Okay. So Nitya Sukriti inspires one to Bhakta Sangha and Bhakti Kriya Sangha. So then he says, then Chudamani asks, oh, what is this Bhakta Sangha and Bhakti Kriya Sangha? From what type of Sukriti do these activities arise? So he says that Bhakta Sangha means to take association of devotees and in their association engage in Krishna Katha, Krishna Kirtan, like that. And the activities of Krishna Katha, Krishna Kirtan in itself is called as Bhakti Kriya Sangha. Okay. So he explains that if a person unknowingly engages in either Bhakta Sangha or Bhakti Kriya Sangha, then he develops Nitya Sukriti. And when this Nitya Sukriti accumulates over many, many lifetimes, it becomes Shraddha for Sadhu Sangha and Bhajana Kriya. Like that. And then one becomes qualified for Bhakti. He explains this point. Okay. So therefore, he says, even though someone may take birth in a Muslim family because of performing sinful activities, but at the same time, this person may have a lot of Nitya Sukriti or Agyata Sukriti, because of which he may develop faith in pure devotional service. So why should this be a surprise? So Chudamani says that, well, if something like Bhakti Poshaka Sukriti or Bhakti Onmukhi Sukriti is really there, then there must be some reason for Bhakti Onmukhi Sukriti, right? So that must be uh, it must be the result of some other type of Sukriti, right? So because the Yavanas do not possess that Sukriti, therefore uh, devotional service must be beyond the reach of the Yavanas. Again and again, Chodamani says like this. Vaishnadas Babaji Maharaj says, okay, one should not think in these terms. Nitya Sukriti and Naimittika Sukriti are independent of each other. They are not at all connected. There is no connection between material piety and Agyata Sukriti. Absolutely none. Zero. Okay. So, and then he gives example of stories from the Puranas where a sinful hunter unknowingly performed the Shivaratri vow for some reason, and then he became a Vaishnava like that. Hmm. So then Chudamani asks, "Oh, so you mean to say that this Nitya Sukriti appears by chance?" Vaishnadas Babaji Maharaj says, "Everything in one sense, if you see, occurs by the force of circumstance only. This is true even with the case of karma. Uh, So, but in reality, if you see, the Jiva's Bhagavat, Bhagavad Vimukata uh, is the root cause of entering into the realm of karma, is turning his face away from Krishna. So, similarly, Nitya Sukriti also can occur by, may appear to have occurred by chance, but in reality, it happens by the association of Vaishnavas. When Vaishnavas become favorably disposed towards someone, Satam Kripa, then uh, they engage the jiva in either uh, bhakta sangha or bhakti kriya sangha. Huh? So then that leads to accumulation of sukriti, which eventually becomes shraddha. So Chudamani then asks, so you mean to say again and again, because he cannot tolerate it. Hmm? So do you mean to say there is absolutely no distinction between one practicing Vedic culture and a Muslim? You mean to say there is no difference? Again, Vaishnav Babaji Maharaj explains. Look, there are two types of differences between men, Paramarthik and Vyavaharik. Again and again, he comes to the same point. Okay. Paramarthik means those of spiritual nature, and Vyavaharik means those of material nature. Between an Aryan and a Yavana, between a person following the Vedic Dharma and a Muslim, there is absolutely no spiritual differences, but there is only mundane distinctions. Okay. So he says, Chudamani asks, oh, what could be these mundane distinctions between a Muslim and a practitioner of Vedic Dharma? Vaishnav Das Babaji Maharaj says, social intercourse in day-to-day material life is called as Vyavaharik. In a materialistic society, a Yavana or a Muslim is considered to be untouchable. But this is a mundane distinction. Okay. So that is why, the Aryas are those who are following the Vedic Dharma. They may refuse water or food from the hands of the Yavanas. So then Chudamani asks, okay, if this is the difference on a Vyavaharik platform, then how can there be spiritual equality between an Arya and a Yavana? How can there be spiritual equality? Vaishnav Babaji Maharaj says, oh, that is because the Shastras say, Bhruguvara Naramatram Tarayet Krishna Nama. It says that holy name or the path of bhakti delivers one as long as he is a human being, because a Yavana is also a human being. And a person following the Vedic Dharma is also a human. So uh, therefore there is parity on the spiritual platform. This means that all human beings, including the Yavanas, are equal in respect to attaining their spiritual goals of bhakti. Therefore, those who are bereft of Nitya Sukriti, they are on the level of being animals only. Therefore, he says, therefore, Mahabharat says, Mahaprasade Govinde Nama Brahmani Vaishnave Swalpa Punyavatam Rajan Vishwaswani Vachayate. So, Swalpa Punya, that Punya refers to Sukriti or Nitya Sukriti. For those who lack sufficient Nitya Sukriti, For them, they cannot understand the transcendental nature of Mahaprasad, Govinda, Nama Brahmani, Nava, these four things. So at this point of time, Chudamani criticizes Vaishnadas Babaji Maharaj and says, what do you mean that our prasad is transcendental? It is just made of rice, dal, vegetables, and so on. How can it be transcendental? It is real only. You Vaishnavas, you believe anything like that, he criticizes. So Vaishnadas Babaji Maharaj says, look, we are having a discussion. Don't get personal and please do not blaspheme the Vaishnavas. So he says that then he quotes Ishopanishad verse where Krishna says, the Lord says, Ishavasyamidam sarvam yatkincha jagatyam jagat. So he says that Tena Tyaksena Bunjita Magradaha Kasya Siddhanam. So there he mentions that everything belongs to Krishna. You can accept yours as a remnant. Okay. So those remnants are transcendental in nature, like that he mentions. Okay. So Chudamani says, okay, let us come to the point. How are we supposed to behave with the Muslims? So Vaishnadas Babaji Maharaj says, as long as a person remains a Muslim, we are indifferent towards them. So now indifference means what? Indifference does not mean hatred. Okay. Like what is being proposed in today's day and age. If you are a chaste Hindu, you should hate Muslims, Christians, like that. Certainly, that is the message that is being injected into our blood in today's day and age. It is not like that. So he says that if they remain a Muslim, then we have to be indifferent. We discussed last time about the difference between active compassion and passive compassion. Indifference is passive compassion. Okay. And then active compassion is kripa. Balisheshu kripa. If someone is innocent and then one tries to, show them active compassion. But if someone is inimical, then we show passive compassion by neglecting them. But there is no question of hatred. There is question of hatred. But if the Yavana becomes a Vaishnava, then we can no longer refer to him as a Yavana. Like that, he says. Chudamani says, okay, I understand. So then, can a Grihastha Vaishnava give his daughter's hand in marriage to a Yavana Vaishnava? Okay. Vaishnadas Babaji Maharaj says, look, for the world of materialistic society, people around you are material. Even though you may have faith in devotional service, people around you will not have faith in devotional service. So for such people, a Yavana remains a Yavana till his death. Whether he accepts Vaishnavism or not, it is immaterial to them. Okay. For them, if he's a born Yavana, born Muslim, he is a Muslim till his death. Okay. So, and so therefore, what to do? So if a Yavana Vaishnava, if a Grahastha Vaishnava marries his daughter to a Yavana Vaishnava, these people who do not have a higher understanding, they will get unnecessarily confused. So therefore, in performing these 10 types of samskaras, which are all smartha activities, this is another very important point. We have discussed this many times. The Dashavida samskaras are not Vaishnava activities. 10 types of samskaras are not devotional samskaras. They are samskaras to fix one's varna only. Janmana jayate shudra samskarat to bhave dvija. By samskara one becomes a dvija only. By samskara one does not become a Vaishnava. So these Dashavida samskaras they come within the category of karma only. Okay, they don't fall within the category of bhakti. Okay, so if someone decides to remain a Grihastha Vaishnava, he is not ready to give up his presence in the society. If he wishes to be a part of the society, then certain societal norms which are defined by the Varnashrama Dharma should be followed. Otherwise, other people will get unnecessarily agitated for that purpose. So if you have to be a part of the society, you have to follow certain societal rules. So in today's day and age, this refers to paying income tax, following the traffic rules, uh, and all these things are important. They have to be followed because you're a part of the society. Okay. So, so therefore, for Loka Sangraha purpose, a Vaishnava, a Grihastha Vaishnava may follow certain societal rules and not unnecessarily agitate people who are part of the society. Okay, like that. So, like that he says. But if Yavana rejects his society, and if a Grihastha Vaishnava becomes so detached that he also gives up his wife, children, etc., and becomes a Babaji, then on that level, anyway, he is neither a Muslim and he is the Brahmana. So in one sense, he is not a part of the society. So on that level, they are equal brothers. There is even from a there is no Vyavaharik point of view also. But for a Grihastha Vaishnava who still wishes to be a part of the society, certain societal norms have to be followed. Otherwise, domestic society may place hindrances in the Grihastha's path of bhajan. That is the problem. Okay. They may cause hindrances in the Grihastha's path of practicing bhakti. Unnecessarily, one does not want to court any kind of inconveniences for one's own practice of bhakti or others. So therefore, he will follow the societal norms properly. Okay, like that. But ultimately, the teaching is Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Raja Aham Tvam Sarva Papebhyo Mokshayishyami Ma Shucha. So then Chudamani asks, okay, if a Yavana becomes a Vaishnava, will you sit together with him and eat? So he says, okay, actually, if someone is not a Grihastha Vaishnava, but if he's a Babaji, then he can definitely sit with another Yavana Vaishnava and honor Mahaprasad. But because a Grihastha Vaishnava, if he is in a society which is filled with people who are very proud of social etiquettes, then unnecessarily not wanting to agitate them, a Grihastha Vaishnava may have to follow the social norms. He may not sit and dine with a Yamana Vaishnava like that. Otherwise, there is nothing wrong. From the Paramarthik platform, there is nothing wrong. But because it will lead to Vyavaharik issues, therefore, he may not do that. Then Chudamani asks, then why are the Yavana Vaishnavas prohibited from touching the deity paraphernalia? Okay. So he says that first thing Vaishnav Babaji Maharaj says, look, it is actually offensive to call a Vaishnava a Yavana. Okay. Every single Vaishnava has the right to serve the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna. Okay. So, so again, this whole thing boils down to social etiquette. But within the house, without, essentially, because, but when he comes to within the house, there is nothing wrong in their worshipping a deity form of the Lord. But socially, in a system where, if a social system is there, where these rules are strictly followed, then unnecessarily in a one should not agitate those people. For such purposes, it may be. But anyway, for advanced Vaishnavas, their worship of deity is more on a meditative platform rather than actual physical deity worship platform, like that. So then Chudamani asks, okay, tell me what do you think of the Brahmanas? Vaishnavdas Babaji Maharaj says there are two types of Brahmanas. Those who are Brahmanas by qualification and those who are Brahmanas only by birth. Okay. Swabhava Siddha Brahmanas and Jati Siddha Brahmanas. Okay. But both Brahmanas, even though Swabhava Siddha Brahmana is to be qualified more, but still the Vaishnavas respect both of them. But still, Viprad Vishadguna Yutad Aravinda Naba Padaravinda Vimukad Swapacham Varishtam. In reality, if a Brahmana is not a worshipper of Vishnu, then he is inferior than a dog eater who is a worshipper of Vishnu. Okay. So then Chudamani asks, are these lower caste people allowed allowed to study the Vedas? Vaishnav Babaji Maharaj says, look, there are two sections of the Vedas. There are two sections of the Vedas. So one is the karma section, another is the bhakti section. In essence, I am summarizing the whole discussion in order to not expand it. He says, for studying the karma section, definitely there is a qualification in terms of birth, karma, and swabhava that is needed. But for practicing for learning and assimilating the bhakti section of the Shastras, which talk about the essential conclusions, there is no material qualification that is needed. And then he gives many proofs to explain this point. Okay. Yasya deve para bhakti reta deve tata gurau tasyete katito hiyartaha prakashante mahatmanah. If he has implicit faith in Supreme Lord and in Guru, then such a person can understand the imports of all the Vedic knowledge, like that. So, to put it in a nutshell, those who have developed Shraddha in the process of Ananya Bhakti are suitable candidates to scrutinize the sections of the Vedas which talks about the highest tattva, which is Bhakti. So Chudamani says, do you mean to say that the second section of the Vedas which talks about the tattva, do you mean to say that it talks about Vaishnava Dharma? Vaishnava Babaji Maharaj, in conclusion, he says that yes, it talks about Vaishnava Dharma only. And then he quotes some verses to establish this point. Okay. So at this point of time, after very conclusively, and when Vaishnav Babaji Maharaj, for every single point that he made, he quoted verses, very appropriate verses extensively. So there was no way in which Krishna Chudamani could refute any of these arguments. So they became completely morose. Their enthusiasm, decreased, and eventually they dispersed. And in this way, we concluded with the 6th chapter, which talked about Nitya Dharma, birth and caste differences. Okay, so this is where we ended our discussion last week. So before we continue today's discussion, if there are any quick discussion points, comments, questions, because we are now putting an end to this chapter, very, very critical chapter, extremely critical chapter. So we have discussed this elaborately. This chapter we have really spent a lot of time discussing this chapter, and now we are going to start the 7th chapter. So if at all there are any unresolved issues, questions, comments, discussions, some reflections you wish to share, some learnings that you have learned from this chapter, anything that comes to your mind, please open up and share before we move on to the 7th chapter. We are going to move on to the 7th chapter. Anything that you wish to share, please go ahead and share. Okay. Yes, Mother Gail.
Hi, Krishna Prabhu. Yeah, a few questions. I just need to clarify the definition of caste Brahmana, because it seems like not just any Brahmana who has faith in Varnashram would be considered caste Brahmana, right? It's those who believe that your varna is due to birth only, is it?
Yeah.
So if you have faith in the varnashram system, that doesn't necessarily mean that you think like that, is it?
Yeah. It's not necessary. But even though most people may fall within the category, but it is not necessary.
Okay.
Because having grown up in such kind of a society,
Yeah.
I know that most people think that way only.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
practically, I grew up in Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. In Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya also, I have not seen a single Sri Vaishnava, at least personally, I have not known one who thinks otherwise. I mean, practically everyone thinks you are born Brahmana, you are Brahmana only, like that.
Right. Okay. Another question was, is it that the only qualification to develop bhakti is that you be a human being?
Yeah.
The reason why I ask is because even though, like, if an animal eats prasadam, right? Would you say that he is only accumulating a gata sukriti?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
But because he does, no animal, practically speaking, has the ability to develop faith in bhakti. It's for that reason that we say that they are.
Yeah.
Oh,
That is true. If he had,
okay. So,
actually had developed faith already, then he would have never gotten a human birth, a non-human birth.
but I mean,
So, which
people.
means definitely, an animal, uh, uh, is, may have like 90% sukriti, uh, and he may become a dog uh, in the locality of a Vaishnava where they feed him lot of prasadam. So he may develop the remaining 10% sukriti. So now he has 100% sukriti. So as soon as his next birth will be a guaranteed human birth. As soon as he gets human birth, he will start practicing bhakti in that particular lifetime.
But isn't it true that even if a person has developed shraddha,
Mhm.
maybe maybe it's only due to offenses, but there still remains that possibility that they can go back, right, to animal birth, no?
Yeah,
Slide down.
only if only if by committing severe offenses, if they lose all that devotional credits, then it is possible. Yes, possible.
But those offenses would have to be severe, no?
Severe in comparison to the amount of devotional service that they have done.
Okay, great. I didn't. I think I'd like you to speak a little bit more when you brought up this subject of chants in connection with karma and bhakti. So
Yeah,
in connection. Mm-hmm.
I will just touch on that point. When
Yeah.
when he mentioned chance there, it meant circumstantial, created by circumstance. Like for example, you develop a karma based on, you are put in a circumstance, you respond to it to get your karma. If a different circumstance would have come, would have come, then you would have responded in a different way, and you would have you would have received a different karma. So in that sense, he was mentioned.
Yeah, I guess I'll have to think about that a little bit more, because just right now I'm thinking that the the circumstance that you're confronted with,
Mhm.
that I would think is not by chance,
True.
right?
Yeah. Yeah, that
Okay.
is not by chance. That is not by chance. But it's like that.
Yeah,
But
so
it's
chance
like
here means the, you know, your response simply depends upon the particular circumstance you're dealing with.
can you repeat, Madhuri?
I'm so chance here means only that your response is dependent on the particular circumstance, which by destiny you are confronted with.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and with respect to bhakti,
Mhm.
chance is that, you know, it's not predetermined which which Majjhima devotee will bestow his mercy on you.
Yeah, it is not predator.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So in
Okay,
one sense,
last,
it is like in one sense it is like chance only for bhakti. Of
yeah,
course,
in terms of
it depends on how you define chance.
like,
It
yeah,
depends
it's
on
not
how you define chance. But in one sense, if you see, it is like chance only. That is why, I mean, if someone by chance gets something good, then how would you call that person?
lucky.
Huh? Lucky,
Lucky.
fortunate, right? Fortunate. So similarly, that is why devotees are called as fortunate. Right? So you cannot ascribe any any other reason, just that they happen to uh, uh, they happen to be there when a Vaishnava arrived there, when a compassionate Vaishnava arrived, and they received and created an opportunity for some Agyata Sukriti, and they got it. That's all. So in one sense, it is by that is why devotees are called as fortunate people, because by
They're the
fortune,
right place, right time. Right?
yeah, yeah.
But it sounds like you're also kind of indirectly saying that in another sense it's not by chance.
Well, in another sense, it is not by chance, in the sense because there was a well-intentioned Vaishnava who wanted to something good to you. So it is not so there is an intention behind it, intention of
Mm-hmm.
a Vaishnava behind it. In that
Yeah.
sense, it is not chance. But the
Yeah.
very fact that that Vaishnava landed there, or you
Yeah.
landed where, a Vaishnava might have planned to come there, but you landed there by chance, in one sense.
Mm-hmm.
So
Well, the fact that the two of us landed at the same place at the same time, that's chance.
yeah, yeah.
Well, one way in which I was thinking that it's also not by chance is because, my understanding is that a person who has performed a Agyata Sukriti,
Mhm.
that Agyata Sukriti kind of, I don't know if this is the right way to say it, but by that Agyata Sukriti, Krishna gives that person more opportunity in reciprocation for that Agyata Sukriti. Krishna gives him more opportunity to perform more Agyata Sukriti. Is that right or wrong?
No, because that person is still not, mm, even though he has some Agyata Sukriti, but that person is still not considered a devotee, right?
Right.
He's not yet a devotee. If he is not yet a devotee, then Krishna's dealings with that person should be neutral only.
Okay,
Because
well
Krishna
then
is
this is the this then if this not true, then it's another one of those popular misconceptions that are floating around.
uh-huh.
Because the conception is that um you're your prior performance of Agyata Sukriti,
Uh-huh.
is makes you a candidate to get more opportunities to perform more devotional service
Well,
unknowingly.
I can it can be interpreted in a particular way, uh, because if, let's say, if someone has had a good experience with the devotee, then of course, not knowing that he's a devotee, so if
Mm-hmm.
that first good experience will make him all the more favorably inclined to meet that person again and receive more sukriti, appreciate him more, or similar people. Um, so, or if someone incidentally came on a Sunday, passed through the temple, he received some prasadam, he liked it. He may say, "Oh, let me try out this Sunday also. I may get something to eat free of cost." So, in that way, if you see, yes,
Mm-hmm.
but otherwise, no, because uh, if um, because ultimately, till one sukriti falls within the category of non-direct, the intervention of Krishna, direct intervention of Krishna is not there. So it is the
Mm-hmm.
Vaishnavas who go and touch people to give them sukriti or to facilitate them accumulate some sukriti. So why would Vaishnavas that, oh, I have already touched this person, so I will touch him more and more again and again. If a Vaishnava incidentally thinks like that, then maybe there is a chance. But not all Vaishnavas think like that also.
No, wait,
So
I didn't understand that one. Say,
okay,
I
if,
didn't.
if let's say if Mother Gail for the first time comes to Tobacco Temple, and
Mm,
or she passes through that place, and
mm,
some one Vaishnava comes and gives some prasadam, and you seem to like it, and that Vaishnava is he takes your address and he ensures that monthly once I will send some prasadam because you seem to appreciate the prasadam very much. So I want to
mm-hmm,
facilitate your accumulation of some sukriti. So if he may choose, okay, one person, I will focus on this one person more and more because he or she seem to appreciate prasadam. So so if in case a Vaishnava decides that way, then one person may keep on getting more sukriti. But
mm,
that's not the way every Vaishnava thinks. One Vaishnava thinks, I will sit here. Whoever crosses this temple, I will hand them little prasadam. So that way,
mm-hmm,
anyone comes, he gets the prasadam. So, uh, so that means if what you said, that popular opinion is true, I've read it like that somewhere, but it is not very clear that way, and I don't understand it that way also. If that is
mm-hmm,
true, then the very first Sukriti, if someone gets, then he is definitely destined to become a devotee because more and more and more and more and more and more, because of the first getting of Sukriti, he will eventually helplessly become a devotee because he will attract more and more Sukriti. And a person who has not received the first Sukriti, he has a very least chance, he is already disadvantaged. He will
mm-hmm.
not get a Sukriti at all. So
Yeah.
this means, you know, the one who gets Sukriti will keep getting Sukriti more and more. The one who never got Sukriti, he will never get Sukriti, or if it's rare that he will get Sukriti. So this kind of a system again seems very whimsical and partial actually. So therefore I don't think this understanding is completely correct actually.
No, no, that makes sense to me. That makes sense. Um, yeah. So Krishna does
Unless
not.
unless you understand this way, that Mother Gail came while passing through the tobacco temple, she got a laddu which she really liked. So she decided, wow, I never asked for it. I was not asked to pay for it, and I'm liking it so much. So maybe I should try passing through this place once more. Let me try my luck more. And she keeps passing by more and more and keeps getting more and more laddu. But if she had not received that first laddu, she would not have become more inclined to try it out again and again. So, in one sense, if you see, if someone has received a favorable experience, then from his point of view, he might want to check out if he can again and again get that favorable experience, which is true with anything in this world, right? So, you try out something, you liked it, and you want to try it out more. So, from that perspective, um, yes, it is possible. Um, mm, but otherwise, from the perspective of Krishna's arrangement, that will
Yeah.
Krishna, if someone gets Sukriti once, will Krishna ensure that that person gets more and more and more and more opportunity for Sukriti accumulation? I don't think so that way. That would still make Krishna little partial, I would say.
Right. No, that makes sense. But have you heard this before?
I have heard this before. Yes.
Okay, great. So I know that it's not coming out of my own head.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so the only time Krishna gets personally involved is when is only once the person has decided, I want to take up this practice.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Just there was just one last thing. Is not very well formulated, but I was thinking when Churamani was talking about the fact that people who are not Brahmanas can, as long as you're a Vaishnav, no matter what your birth, can they do deity worship and things like that,
Mhm.
And, the response was, well, yes, right?
Well,
Because, I mean, no, as long as it's not disrupting the society thing, But,
exactly.
yeah.
Exactly.
But this conversation made me think of um in ISKCON,
Doesn't
in
apply.
order to perform, excuse me.
It doesn't apply in. I mean, I don't think it no
No,
longer applies within the
no,
context of one sense.
I was thinking about the fact that even in ISKCON, even among Vaishnavas,
Uh-huh.
even Vaishnavas are not able to do deity worship unless they become second initiates.
Oh, but that is second initiation is not a material qualification. Ideally, of course. Um, Ideally, I would say second initiation is when by sincere practice of the 9 of devotional service, if one shows significant purification of heart, then as a result of that, one is supposed to get second initiation. So it's not that, oh, we need more pujaris, so uh, well, uh, initiate more people. That may be okay. Uh, so in that sense, the person who is initiated should understand, well, this is not something which has been bestowed upon me um, as a result of my qualification, but it is more in terms of a need. So one should see it that way. So ideally, the second initiation is bestowed not because someone has certain kind of material qualification, but certainly one has to show uh, some significant spiritual progress, because of which one is bestowed upon that particular second initiation. So from that perspective, one should see.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So spiritual qualification would mean what? A reduction in selfish desires.
Yeah, the subduing of the rajogun, tamogun, like that.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I guess that's just up to the spiritual master to figure that out.
Yes, yes, yes.
Uh-huh. Okay, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I finally came.
Oh, I'm sorry. I muted you before you completed.
No. I was just saying I finally came to the end. Thank you, Prabhu.
Yes, Sachi Pranto.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Pranam, Prabhuji. Please accept my humble.
Please accept.
Prabhuji, I have 2-3 questions. First, to understand that the discussion going on between Chudamani and Vishnudas Babaji Maharaj, he asked about Yavana touching the deity panel, deity worship. I think deity worship part of the person who is from Muslim background.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not able to clearly understand what exactly. Answer is very clear that the mention that those who are renounced, they need not to practice deity worship and they will practice internally. There is one
Smarana.
part.
Hmm.
Smarana.
Yeah.
But here I am asking someone like who is a person who
Sadhaka.
joined Hare Krishna, Sadhaka. Sadhaka who has been a Vaishnava, now got Brahman initiation from Muslim background, and he can serve deity worship, no?
Yeah. From our perspective, there is no serious social repercussions.
Yeah.
But you know, in one sense, well, no, you're right. I mean, I don't speculate little bit because ISKCON in one sense is an international organization, and by Krishna's arrangement, it's the movement started in the West,
Yeah.
where there is no social, you can say, precedent for only Brahmanas worshipping the deities. There is no precedent of deity worship only in the West.
Correct.
So whether a Brahmana worships or a non-Brahmana worships, there is absolutely no social impropriety at all.
Yeah.
So, and this ISKCON spread all over in the West. Okay. So now, where practically every single pujari in every single temple is, from the birth perspective, he does not belong to any of the four varnas.
Correct.
He is like an Antyaja. And Western social setup, there is no issue because there is no understanding of Brahmana, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, nothing.
Correct.
So now, before ISKCON came to India, in the West it had already spread like wildfire.
Yeah.
Practically, whoever came to India were all winners. The initial pujaris in whether it is Juhu or later Calcutta, all these temples, Mayapur, everyone was Westerner. So practically there is no choice. So ISKCON started in the West, and even when it started getting its roots in India, it was all only the initial devotees were all Westerners only. Now, so therefore, that got established. So even with some Indians may consider this as social impropriety, and they may reject us, but we don't have a choice because the society has spread already like that. Let's think in slightly different way. If Prabhupada's effort in India would have taken off in Jhansi or somewhere, the League of Devotees flourished and the movement started in India, and let's say it spread very widely in India before Prabhupada went to the West. It would have probably been different. So probably Prabhupada would have definitely been little more sensitive of the social setup, of not wanting to disturb the social setup within India. But the fact that the society itself took its roots in the Western soil only.
Yeah.
Therefore, there is no question of social impropriety
Correct.
when it comes to the Western thing. But if ISKCON would have taken root in India, then it would have probably been a slightly different this thing.
Mm.
This is my understanding, actually.
Yeah, so Prabhuji, one point is when the Vaishnava Babaji Maharaj is, this whole Vaishnava Thakur novel, at that time it has been written just after 50 years of Lord Chaitanya's departure. That time
Yeah,
there was a very strong, Brahmanical culture exists, and there were very strong
yeah,
opinions from the Brahmanical side.
yeah,
Nowadays, if you see a Muslim chanting Hare Krishna, the Hindus will be so happy. He's chanting, he's accepting our religion, although they don't understand what is Vaishnava culture or what is a Hindu Muslim, but they accept and they're happy actually because it's okay. He's chanting Hare Krishna, he's coming temple, whether he's belonging from the Yavana family. The people will be
yeah,
happy actually.
yeah. I am not a, you can say a sociologist or anything of that kind. I cannot exactly say. Yeah, my
Because I have
observation.
seen, yeah, in Mayapur, Prabhuji, I have seen Mayapur devotees serving the Muslims in the Mayapur area. The video was circulated, so everyone is so happy, saying that are Muslims getting security and they have started chanting Hare Krishna. So actually, practically the process of bhakti is not dependent on your external caste and
No,
anything.
there is no question about it. It is not
Yeah,
dependent. That there is no question. But the fact is social impropriety.
mm,
So that has to be taken from place to place. Even within India, it may change from place to place. We do not know. So
mm,
I cannot generalize it.
yeah.
But I can understand what Bhaktivinoda Thakur is trying to communicate here.
Mm, mm. So, Prabhuji, when we understand that someone becomes Vaishnava,
Mhm.
then uh, yes, definitely from the social point of view, it may be difficult, but within Vaishnava society, it is absolutely the
No,
respect
within
is remains.
Vaishnava society, there is no problem. When we
Yeah,
are talking about social impropriety, it is outside the Vaishnava society that we are more
correct.
concerned about. Inside
So,
Vaishnava
yeah,
society, also members to be properly educated, because
correct.
people they may carry their past, you can say, prejudices into
Correct.
Vaishnava community also.
Yeah, yeah,
Sometimes when they are coming inside, they may think that they have given up those prejudices, but after some time,
correct.
those prejudices may come up again.
Correct, totally correct.
Yeah.
So, Prabhuji, another question is about what the question of Babaji's discussion with Chudamani is about the marriage aspect, which is one of the sanskara that you have mentioned is one of the sanskara.
Yeah.
But once you become a devotee, you form in a Vaishnava community, and now you are getting married with another Vaishnava, then where is the question of following this kind of etiquette? Basically, I don't understand that
No,
aspect because.
no. See, that is why from a spiritual point of view, it does not really matter.
Hmm,
From a spiritual point of view, it does not really matter.
hmm,
But let us say if Dr. Santosh Chaudhary
hmm.
or someone, let's not take your name, if someone else, let's say from your village, okay, he becomes a devotee, okay,
Hmm,
and marries another Muslim girl who has taken up to Vaishnavism.
hmm,
You know, the parents themselves will create such a problem.
hmm, hmm, hmm,
So
hmm.
for them and the village people.
Correct, correct.
So the issues are there. But
Hmm,
but the boy is a Vaishnava, the girl is a Vaishnava, even from a Muslim background. Then
hmm.
from a spiritual perspective, there is no problem.
Correct, correct.
And if you are in a Western society where there is no question of this kind of social impropriety, there is no problem,
Hmm, hmm.
right? But but here you will have to face lot of social repercussions. People will
Yeah,
create problems for, parents
correct,
will
correct.
create problem for you, or if parents agree, the villagers will create problems for your parents. A
Correct.
lot of things you will have to consider, actually.
Maybe because of the upbringing, culture between different castes. There must be upbringing, so there must
Yeah.
be some, definitely there are issues. But I'm not talking about exactly Yavana, but within the Hindu community, so-called within community also there is a lot of discussion
Yeah,
between
there is a lot of
even Vaishnava community. I'm talking about within Vaishnava community also. They discuss this that caste, which astrology, this is matching, this matching. Everything matches. Ultimately, what happens is happen.
yeah. That is because marriage is not strictly between two individuals. Marriage
Yeah.
is actually between two families, and the seed of divorce is an individual seed. It is not a family
Mm,
seed. So when
mm,
it comes to marriage, you have to take all these things into consideration,
correct.
right? Because one one family is getting married to another family,
Mm,
and if in both these families, if only the persons, two persons actually getting married have devotion, and the rest don't have devotion, then you will have to take into consideration those other aspects also.
yes, Prabhuji.
If you don't take into consideration, there is no Mr. Spiritual platform,
Mm,
but from the social platform you may face problems. That is the issue.
correct, correct. Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you, sir. Hare Krishna.
Yes, Keshav Priya Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandavat Pranam, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, we're discussing about Muslims and all, we're discussing now, Prabhuji, but in NOI, the shloka number 6, there is an instruction from Rupa Goswami that we are not supposed to differentiate a Vaishnava, maybe pure devotee on basis of any of their birth or...
Yeah, you're not supposed to.
So, yeah. So that means like within the community, we're not supposed to distinguish anyone on that
Absolutely
basis.
not. Absolutely not.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah.
Prabhuji. And
So
another
when
doubt.
we are talking about social impropriety, it's for outsiders, because outsiders cannot accept the 6th verse of NOI. No?
Prabhuji, but maybe even many Guru Maharaj are from foreign, Prabhuji, but outsiders may not know about them
Appreciate.
also. But no, Prabhuji, many of the exalted devotees of the movement are from foreign also, from European countries. But the same social repercussion is there for any other people will not understand their exalted position also. They may comment on them also, but we are not supposed to bother.
So that is why we have to see, we have to try to minimize social impropriety as much as possible. Wherever possible, it is
So
not
why is
that.
it especially for Muslims? These people are also Christians now, Prabhuji, by birth. Many of the
There is
devotees.
nothing like Muslims is an example he has taken, that's all.
Oh,
It might as well be because Chand Kazi was involved, and because the discussion is in Mayapur setup, and Mayapur has only two religions. One is
Hindus and
Muslims
Muslims.
and Hindus. So therefore it is a storyline, right? Otherwise in Shikshamrit, Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about Christians also.
Okay. Prabhuji, I have another doubt, Prabhuji. Do you have time, Prabhuji?
If it is relevant to what we have discussed.
Yeah, exactly relevant to what we are discussing, Prabhuji.
Yes.
I really don't know whether I missed it because of in between 5 minutes I just missed the session. Prabhuji, we are discussing about the discussion of about the Muslims, like they cannot practice Varnashrama Dharma because they're born in this birth, Muslim birth, but they can take up bhakti. The discussion was like that, no, Prabhuji.
Yeah.
So my doubt is, what is that bhakti they mentioned? Like, because the other day, Bhakti Aloka, I think we are discussing again about Muslims. We're discussing earlier also, Prabhuji. So the bhakti here they mean is like our devotional service, or is it a pure devotional service in Muslim religion itself? What is that it means, Prabhuji?
See, pure devotional service in Muslim religion is a very, 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 very rare thing.
But you are explaining us the other day, Prabhuji, like how do you know that they're not practicing? I was asking this question to you, but you are explaining how do you know?
That is what I am telling. I said I never used the word impossible. I said rare. Rare means possible. that not I am telling.
Hmm.
Bhaktivinoda Thakur is telling.
Yeah, Prabhuji, when we are discussing that, our discussion was based on, like, I was asking you many questions regarding this, Prabhuji, but the understanding was that, what I understood, maybe you explained clearly, but what I understood is that they can follow their religion also very sincerely. They are, they have their own gurus also, and they also can do pure devotional service. But today,
I
hearing
said
this
can.
conversation,
No,
Hmm.
I said yes, it is possible. See,
Hmm.
I know
Hmm.
because I have spent time, I know this parampara is bona fide.
Hmm.
Because I have not tried to understand their religion and I have
Hmm.
not researched their religion, I
Hmm.
do not know if they have some sects. Just like
Hmm.
within Hindu, how many categories are there? So
Hmm.
many categories are there. So within which, how many practice, even within the realm of Vaishnava Sampradayas,
Hmm.
how many exactly practice pure devotional service as defined by Srila Rupa Goswami? You know, practically very rare. Huh? So, if considering that case, if this is the case in a religion in which I grew up, uh, and it has taken me so many years to figure this out, how can I comment about a religion about which I have no idea?
It
I
is
have
not
not
about
studied.
your comment. I'm asking about the comment of the Acharya, like Bhaktivinoda Thakur,
Comment of
because here the
Acharya is very
Babaji,
clear. It is very
Prabhuji,
clear.
here Babaji Maharaj says, even a Muslim, he should receive Ajnata Shukriti to take up pure devotional service. So this Ajnata
Okay.
Shukriti means it's what we mean. Or is it similar? It is different. That is what I'm asking you. It is there Ajnata Shukriti in their religion also, something like that?
Yeah. See, Vaishnavism is something of the soul.
Hmm.
Okay. So
Hmm.
where did this Kazi receive his desire to practice bhakti? He received it from Chand Kazi, who was a
Hmm.
Muslim only. And these people are
Yes.
still practicing Muslims only.
Okay.
Right. So
Hmm.
not that it is impossible. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, in more generic terms, has very clearly mentioned it is possible. It may be rare, but it is possible in other religions also.
But,
And
but
he very clearly says that Jaiva Dharma in its in its most fully blossomed form is seen in the Vaishnava practices. Okay, but it is not that it is impossible in other religions. That they are very clearly mentioned.
But what is that he is advising here? Like for the question of that person, like Babaji Maharaj is explaining that he should take up, he can do devotion, like he may not be eligible for karma, varnashrama dharma, but he is very much eligible for bhakti if he gets Ajnata Shukriti. So he
Correct.
means our Vaishnavism, is it Prabhuji here?
That aspect of bhakti only.
That's what
That
I
kind of,
wanted, because it's a general term, like for Muslims also they have something like that, or is
yeah,
it particularly he means?
or if particular sect of Muslims,
Mm,
they may practice, even though they may have the name of the Lord in Arabic language and everything in their language, but
mm.
hmm, but in essence, if it is the conclusion is according to our Vaishnava scriptures, then it may refer to that also.
That is what I wanted to, because
Yeah.
like, is it the only way, like taking up the Vaishnavism is the only way to practice pure devotional service, or it is there in their religion also? That is my question, Prabhuji.
Generally, when we are
Mm,
here, when he is generally talking about uh, pure devotional service, Vaishnavism is talking about that which is followed in Mayapur only.
mm,
Okay.
mm,
But he is not ruling out a possibility of pure devotional practices in other religion. That is the point.
mm.
It is
That's what we
possible,
were discussing
but
the
when he is
other day.
talking about pure devotional service or Vaishnavism, he is talking about what is being taught by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But
Okay,
he
so
is
here
not
he means
ruling
that
out
only.
that such a
Mm,
thing is not possible in other religions. He does not say that.
So that part we are all not aware. Like as you said, we are not invested time and energy to know about that. So we cannot comment on that
Yeah.
part.
Then why we want to comment?
Yeah,
Why
yeah,
we want
true.
to?
Mm. Okay, Praj. Thank you, Praj. Hare Krishna.
Correct. Okay, there are some questions in the chat box also. Prabhupada says that he used to go to his neighborhood Muslims and take food in their home. Well, I am not very sure what to make out of it. I am not. I don't know what to comment on this. If unless you want to add more details to it, but otherwise, I don't know what exactly to comment on this. Yeah, maybe he did, but yeah, beyond that, I can't say anything about it. Okay, there is another question. It is very disappointing that so many things have to be done just for Loka Sangraha in spite of knowing the true essence. Well, I'm not very sure. See, when it comes to Loka Sangraha Dharma, it is very much customized. You know, where you are, you know, like for example, I was discussing with one devotee recently that Prabhuji traditionally in our community, in the community in which this Vaishnava grew up, community of her not the spiritual community, in her caste, you know, there is no practice of Shraddha ceremony only. They don't perform Shraddha ceremony. There is nothing called Shraddha ceremony in their community. So for her, recently she lost her mother-in-law. Recently she lost her mother-in-law. So she asked, do I have to perform Shraddha? I said, why? I mean, anyway, in your community, anyway, they don't perform. It is not your community. It's not the practice within your community. So then, as a Vaishnava, you know, you offer bhoga to the Supreme Lord and feed the Vaishnavas prasadam. That's all. That is sufficient. Because in your community, anyway, it is not a Loka Sangraha karma. So what is Loka Sangraha for whom? It all varies. If in the West someone says, I will perform Shraddha for Loka Sangraha, I mean, Loka Sangraha for whom? In your religion, in your community, there is no practice of that. So this kind of Loka Sangraha, it's all in one sense, you know, it is all changes from person to person, you know, place to place. So not everyone has to do every Loka Sangraha. And actually, I will read your question again. It is very disappointing that so many things have to be done just for Loka Sangraha in spite of knowing the true essence. Well, Loka Sangraha is an act of compassion. A Vaishnava performs Loka Sangraha Dharma out of compassion, just like he does preaching out of compassion. Right? So he does Loka Sangraha compassion. So what kind of a compassion is it to perform Loka Sangraha karma? The compassion is that I don't wish to unnecessarily cause social impropriety because of which people get negatively disposed towards Vaishnava Dharma. That is the compassion. So therefore, we don't see for us, Loka Sangraha Dharma is also bhakti. In the sense, it is an act of compassion. It is an act of compassion. So Loka Sangraha Karma for a devotee is a secondary limb of bhakti. It is a secondary limb of bhakti which he is performing for the benefit of society, not for himself. Okay, in that sense, one has to see Loka Sangraha Karma. Okay, there is another question. The Sufis practice a form of bhakti. According to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, the Sufis, what they practice is actually Mayavad. So, even though there may seem to be some elements which look like bhakti, but in Jaiva Dharma only in the previous chapter, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, through the mouth of that Kazi, he indicated that Sufis are, it's a kind of Mayavad. That's what he says. Anyways, I don't know much, but this is what he says. Okay, there is another question. Definition of pure devotional service includes Krishnanushilanam. So in the case of Muslims who practice pure devotional service, what would Krishnanushilanam be? Of course, the word Krishna in Krishnanushilanam includes all the incarnations and forms of the Lord. So if they have some sects of Muslims may have a form. So it's not, we do not know that if every sect of Muslims, they reject form. And Qazi described that when we say that Muslims do not accept form, it means that we do not accept a material form, but definitely there is acceptance of spiritual form. And then he gave some proofs for that. So if there is an acceptance of a form of the Lord as described in their Quran or by their prophets, worshipping that form is also considered Krishnanushilanam. If it is in line with if their understanding of that form is in line with the descriptions of the Shastras. Okay, if I'm not wrong, the concept of Uttama Bhakti is associated with unalloyed devotion to Krishna. Of course, there Krishna, he explains very clearly, Krishna includes Krishna and all his other forms and incarnations. So, and the Shastras say it is the incarnations are unlimited actually. So I'm not telling, so don't get into the nitty-gritties of this whole thing. The point is that we are not telling that pure devotional service is practiced in other religions. That is not what we are claiming. The point is that it is not impossible. That is the point. Okay. So don't get into the details of it. But the point is that it is not impossible. And Krishna in Krishnanushilanam includes all the incarnations of the Lord also. So is it possible that its worship is possible in other religion? That's what Bhaktivinoda Thakur says. It's not impossible. It is not impossible. That's what he says. But not that we try to go and practice pure devotional service in other religion. When we already have pure devotional service, which is very clearly being practiced in our Vaishnava Dharma, we don't search elsewhere. But at the same time, we don't say that it cannot be practiced anywhere else at all. That is the point. So, okay. Here is a very valid question. So, should Vaishnavas be well versed in Dharma Shastras for performing Loka Sangraha Karma? Well, not really. To some extent, they don't have to know the Dharma Shastras very well to practice Loka Sangraha Karma. Already people of their community who are well versed, like say for example, they have to perform some particular aspect of Shraddha, which is practiced in there. So you get the priests who may know the Dharma Shastras, they may do it. Fine. So we do whatever is needed. We don't spend time learning the Dharma Shastras. That is not what our Acharyas have told. That is my understanding. Okay. So any further discussion points, comments before we move on to today's chapter? 1.5 hours already we have spent, in Q&A and recap. So if there are no further discussion points, let us at least get the next chapter started. And then, so I think today we'll have just time for setting up the, what do you say? The storyline. The actual philosophical discussion will not start today. So we will just get some storyline done, and then maybe the philosophical discussion will start tomorrow. Okay. So let me start the 7th chapter. Let us start the 7th chapter. So the 7th chapter is titled as Nitya Dharma and Samsara. This is the chapter titled Nitya Dharma and Samsara, or material existence. What is the connection? Okay, that's what we are going to discuss. Now, the first 6 chapters, actually, in one sense, the whole, the whole storyline revolved around Godrumadweep. Okay, so Godrumadweep first, Paramamsa Premdas Babaji Maharaj is there. Then Vaishnavdas Babaji Maharaj comes and joins him. Then Kalidas Lahari comes and joins them. Then Devidas, the son of Kalidas Lahari, comes and joins them. And the whole storyline revolved around Paramamsa Premdas Babaji Maharaj, Vaishnavdas Babaji Maharaj, and then Kalidas Lahari and Devidas. So these 4 are in one sense like the main characters around whom the whole storyline revolved, and practically the whole thing has happened in Godrumadweep only. So now the storyline is going to slightly change. But it's going to happen in Mayapur area only, in Navadvip area only, but it's not going to be Godrumadweep. It's going to change. The storyline is slowly going to change now. Okay. Okay, let's discuss. The ancient township of Saptagram, with its predominant mercantile class, is situated upon the banks of the holy river Saraswati, Adi Saptagram. So, this is the place of Sri Uddarandat Thakur. For hundreds of years, many thousands of gold traders and jewelers had lived there. However, since the time of Sri Uddarandat, this trading society, by the mercy of Sri Nityananda, practiced with deep sincerity the congregational chanting of Harinam. Anyone knows exactly where is Saptagram? Those who are in and around, those who are knowledgeable of the geography of Navadvip. Adi Saptagram. I think this is what's called as Adi Saptagram. Anyone knows where exactly is Adi Saptagram? If my memory is right, I think it is on the way from Mayapur to Calcutta. Am I right? You can correct me if I'm wrong. If my memory is right, Adi Saptagram comes on the way from Mayapur to Calcutta. Is that right? Anyone else knows little bit more? Exactly where is Adi Saptagram? No one. Or maybe someone is typing, I don't know. Okay. So, anyways. Okay, Hari Prasad Prabhu says, unfortunate I still cut up, but I did not know. Prabhu, that is your homework. So please come prepared for tomorrow. Okay. Shyam Vallabi Mataji says it's near Katwa. Quite possible. Yeah, my geography is very poor. So, yeah, quite possible it's near Katwa. But, okay, now let me ask one more question. Anyone knows what is the significance of Uddarandat Thakur for us ISKCON devotees? Anyone knows what is the significance of Uddarandat Thakur for us ISKCON devotees? Anyone would like to share your understanding thoughts? Yes, he is an associate of Lord Nityananda, of course, no doubt. What else? He is an associate of Krishna. Thank you very much. Yes, of course. They are very exalted. They are personal associates of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. What else? No one knows? Sheila. Okay. What? What is it? Bengali as by Mother Ganges. What is this? Bangle as by Mother Ganges. Okay, I don't know what it means. Okay, anyways, I will tell, because if you had known, you would have immediately told. Actually, Srila Prabhupada comes in the family of Udarandat Thakur. How many of you knew this? Not that we say that Vaishnavism spreads through family lineage, but at the same time, we respect it also. Srila Prabhupada also came in the same, he was also a Suvarna Manik. He was also the Des. He was like Abhaycharan De. The De community, they were also Sunamaniks. They were also Suvarna Maniks. So, okay, what is Udarandat spiritual form in Braja? He was a Gopa associate of Nityanand Prabhu. I don't know, I don't recollect his name in Braja, but he was a Gopa associate of Nityanand Prabhu. And Srila Prabhupada comes in his family lineage actually. So, Udarandat Thakur was a Suvarna Vanik from the Adi Saptagram area. Srila Prabhupada's lineage also traces back to Udarandat Thakur. I thought at least some of you would know. Okay. Anyways, however, since the time of Sri Udarandat, this trading society had by the mercy of Sri Nityanand, practiced with deep sincerity the congregational chanting of Harinam. Yet, presently, a certain wealthy but miser trader, Chandidas Vanik, had refused to join the congregational chanting, being afraid of a possible increase in his expenses. So the storyline changes here. So, since the time of Udarandat Thakur, actually, they had taken up to the path of bhakti. Oh, someone says his name is Subahu Saka. Udarandat Thakur in his Vraja, his farm in Vraja is Subahu Saka. He was an associate of Balramji. So, anyways, so yet presently a certain wealthy but miserly trader, Chandidas Vanik. So Chandidas Vanik refused to accept the path of congregational chanting, being afraid of a possible increase in his expenses. I don't know what kind of expenses will increase if one takes up to Harinam Sankirtan. But nevertheless, he thought maybe I will have to invite the Vaishnavas for prasadam, like that maybe. Similarly, his wife Damayanti Devi, who had also become infected with the parsimonious tendencies. Parsimonious tendencies means thrifty or very, what do you call, miserly tendency, right? With the parsimonious tendencies of her husband, never invited guests nor served the Vaishnavas. The couple had 4 sons and 2 daughters from early in their marriage. Gradually, they had settled the daughters by marriage and were now keeping aside immense savings for the sons. So they married off their daughters. So now they had 4 sons and they had saved a lot for their sons. Okay. In a household that is not visited by Vaishnavas, the family members, especially the children, easily lose their charitable disposition. Okay. If in a household, the if the household are not Vaishnavas, then their family members very easily lose their um, charitable disposition. So what happened? And so as Chandidas's children had grown older, they had become most selfish. In fact, they had become so greedy for the wealth of their parents that they now began to wish them dead. They wanted their parents to die quickly so that they can enjoy the wealth of their parents. The worries and pain of Chandidas and Damayanti knew no end. So this started paining Chandidas and Damayanti. Gradually, Chandidas and Damayanti found suitable brides for their sons and launched them into household life. They got them married. However, the daughters-in-law, as a result of close association with their husbands, also adopted self-centered ways and soon also desired the quick demise of their parents-in-law. So, because of the association of their husbands, the daughters-in-laws, I always had this problem, whether it is daughter-in-laws or daughter-in-law, it is daughters-in-law. It sounds little awkward to me, but apparently that's what is right. Okay. Sons-in-law. I find son-in-laws more comfortable, but it's wrong actually. Daughters-in-law, sons-in-law. Anyways, so as a result of their close association with their husbands, they also became very crooked, and they also desired that, oh, let our parents-in-law, let them die very quickly, like that they were thinking. So having become capable of handling the business independently of their aging parents and soon managing all the shop transactions themselves, the sons gradually divided most of their father's wealth amongst themselves. So when they grew up and they could handle the business themselves, so what they did, they took the father's money, they divided it amongst themselves. One day, Chandidas called his family together. He said, listen, I was able to save a great deal of money for you all by being thrifty. Your mother and I were never extravagant in regard to our lifestyle, eating or dress. As we are now approaching old age, it is actually your duty to serve and care for us. But I notice that you are not looking after us properly, which is causing us great pain and suffering. Therefore, I have hidden a fair amount of wealth, which I will give to the one who is obedient to me. So this is the presentation of, you know, uh, this Chandidas Vanik. Chandidas Vanik, right? That's what, yeah, Chandidas Vanik. He says that, look, I saved a lot for you. I sacrificed a lot of my comforts, saved everything for you. And I thought you will take care of me. You will take care of us, but you are not taking care of us. So therefore, I have hidden a fairly big amount of wealth and give it only to those persons who will take care of me. So the sons and daughters listened mutely to their father's monotonous monologue, finally dispersing and meeting clandestinely somewhere else later. Clandestinely means secretly. There, they conspired to send their parents far away, confiscate the hidden wealth, and share it amongst themselves. So they thought, okay, we will send the parents far away, and when they have gone far away, we will confiscate that hidden wealth, divide it amongst themselves, so that we don't have to deal with it anymore. So they were concerned that out of sentimentality, their father might eventually donate his money to some undeserving person outside the family. They thought, look, nothing is sure. At least we will get 1/4 of that big wealth. But if the father is not happy with any of us serving him, then he may end up donating that money to someone outside the family. At least we will divide it amongst themselves. So they were convinced that their parents had buried the treasure in a secret place in their bedroom and that to take the treasure away from them was the most sensible decision. They thought, okay, let's send them somewhere on a pilgrimage. When they go to a pilgrimage, where they will hide, they would have hidden it in their bedroom only. So we will try to, you know, um, dig that place and get that wealth out. We will divide it amongst ourselves. So one morning, Haricharan, the eldest of the sons, approached his father and feigning concern and humility suggested, so why don't you and our beloved mother visit at least once the holy place of pilgrimage, Navadvip Dham, and thus fulfill the purpose of your human birth? As if he was really concerned. So he went and the father and mother, and he said that, you should fulfill the purpose of your human birth. You are staying in the Saptagram, at least once you should visit the holy place of pilgrimage of Navadvip. Like that, he says. And then he continues, I have heard in Kali Yuga, the best place of pilgrimage is, okay, there is no other place of pilgrimage is as auspicious as Navadvip Dham. The journey to Navadvip Dham is quite inexpensive. If you cannot travel on foot, a passenger boat can easily be hired to take you upstream for a few pence. There is even a Vaishnava lady who wants to accompany you. So which means everything he has already planned. They have already planned. They asked, they even appointed a Vaishnava lady who was willing to accompany them, and everything was planned. So he was mentioning it this way. So Chandidas informed his wife about the proposal, waiting for her advice. Damayanti Devi was overcome with joy. So they made plans together. So they thought, oh, our earlier talk has had a positive effect upon our sons. So they thought, because we told them that, you should take care of us. So maybe it has had a positive effect on our children. So they are now trying to take care of us by sending us to pilgrimage, like that. Actually, so they thought, actually, we are not too old to walk to Navadvip. Let us take the route that will take us through Kalna and Shantipur, Ambika Kalna and Shantipur. Like that. Consulting the religious almanac, they picked an auspicious date and started their pilgrimage, taking the Vaishnavi with them. So the three of them went. They arrived in Kalna the next day, where they found a guest house, cooked, and were just beginning their meal when a traveler from their hometown walked in. Okay, so they reached Ambika Kalna. So, and when they were just going to honor the food, a traveler from their hometown reached there. He walked in. Recognizing them, he broke the harsh news. What was the news? Your sons have broken open your room and grabbed all your possessions. Plus, they have looted and shared out your secret savings. So your sons have looted everything that you had, whatever secret savings that you had. Now both of you are no longer welcome in your own house. They have decided that we will not take our parents back in our house. So news of the loss delivered a terrible blow to Damayanti and Chandidas. They fell into dismal grey melancholy. Their food lay half eaten and forgotten as tears of self-pity soaked their frail frames. They started crying. Whatever they saved, their sons had taken, and now they had rejected their own parents. Meanwhile, their companion, the Vaishnavi, tried to console them with sensible spiritual advice. She said, do not be so attached to home and hearth. Do not be so attached to home and hearth. Come, let us continue to Navadvip and become mendicants. We can build a small ashram for Vaishnavas and beg food for sustenance. Such a life is better than to go back to those who have become so evil and inimical to you, even though you have done so much for them. Even though you have done so much for them, but they have become so evil. Better than going back and staying there with them, which they are anyway not welcoming you. It is better to live a life of penance. Chandidas and his wife, still under the shock of the atrocious behavior of their sons and daughters in law, began repeating, "We will not return to them, better to die," like that. Thinking in this way, they stayed in Ambika Gram or Ambika Kalna in the house of a Vaishnava for a few days. They stayed there. From there, they went to Shantipur and they toured all the places of Navadvip, eventually staying in Mayapur in the home of a merchant relative. They had a merchant relative in Mayapur, so they stayed at their home. Then they visited the 7 localities of Kuliagram, which is situated on the opposite bank of Ganga to Navadvip. However, after this lengthy time of traveling, they began to feel homesick and affection for their sons and family began to develop in their hearts. They they developed great feelings of affection for their family members, their sons. Chandidas said, "Come, let us return to Saptagram. Is it possible that our own sons will not show us any affection?" So he was thinking, "Come, let's go back to Saptagram. Is it possible that our own children will not show us affection? They will definitely show. How can they reject us like this?" He was having this wishful thinking. Their Vaishnavi companion quickly retorted. She said, "Have you no pride? This time they will definitely murder you." What to speak of? They've already rejected you. This time they will murder you only. Her words had a sobering effect upon the couple, and they realized that most likely she was speaking the truth. Okay, there is a okay. Saptagram is a village and a Gram Panchayat in Chinsura Mogra CD block in the Chinsura subdivision of Hooghly district in the state of West Bengal, India. Okay, thank you, Mataji. So, Chandidas turned to her saying, "My dear respected lady, you have made us wise to the stark reality. Please return to your home. We will remain here and find a proper spiritual guide. Taking instruction from him, we will live our lives humbly by begging." So he said, "Oh, thank you very much for opening our eyes. We became blinded with affection, but you have opened our eyes to reality. So you please now go back home. Thank you very much for coming with us. And you please return home and we will stay here. We will accept a Vaishnava Guru or we will accept a spiritual guide and we will take instruction from him and we will live here. We'll live our lives humbly by begging." So the Vaishnavi left them and returned home. So Damayanti Devi and Chandidas plunged themselves into the task of building a small dwelling in the village of Kulia on a property owned by one Chakauri Chattopadhyay. They went around soliciting help from the village gentry, constructed a hut, began to live there. So they constructed a small dwelling for themselves. Kuliagram is a holy place. It was common knowledge that if one resided there, all of one's previous sins and offenses would be exonerated. Therefore, it was known as Aparada Bhanjan Path, a place that absolves offenses. Aparada Bhanjan Path. So they decided to stay there. One day, Chandidas told his wife, "Oh, mother of Hari, is it not high time that we stop talking or even thinking about our children? Huh? We must have committed many sinful activities to have taken birth in the families of merchants. Influenced by our association and surroundings, we were always stingy and never hospitable either to guests or Vaishnava sadhus. Now, if we can earn some money here, we should try to be generous and hospitable and serve the sadhus." Like that, Chandida told his wife. We have become very stingy, uh, but now that our eyes have been opened, now if we are able to make money, we should try to be generous and hospitable to serve the sadhus. This will ensure for us a better birth in the next life. I have decided to open a grocery store and I will borrow some money from the landlord to start the business. A few days later, Chandidas opened a small shop and soon he began profiting from the sales. Because he was from a mercantile community, you know, he started a shop and he started making profit. So after satisfying their own hunger and needs, the couple feed at least one guest every day. Chandidas now happily foresaw an end to his days of struggle. So then what happens to Chandidas and Damayanti? We will continue this storyline tomorrow. So Chandidas has decided to stay in Kuliagram and he has constructed a hut for himself. He has borrowed some money and he has opened a grocery store and he is making some profit also. And he has decided that enough of living a stingy, sinful life. Let us now, whatever profit we get, we should utilize it in serving the Gurus. So in this way, his life has started, his new life has started in Kuliagram. So what happens in Kuliagram, we will continue this discussion tomorrow. So thank you all very much for your patient listening and your enthusiastic participation. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur Pad ki jai, Shri Jaiva Dharma ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much.